Hello, what's going on? It's Doug Cunnington here, and we're going to talk about content today and quality content. I even made a couple notes here. I'm not sure if we want to, but I could potentially, I'm not going to do this for everyone, but we could actually look at your site and we could review it and decide if it's quality content, especially if you're like on the fence, if you're unsure. So let me know if you could hear me in the chat. I see we got a few people on already. I think that you can hear me because I just heard myself. That's always a good sign. So let's see who we have in the chat. We have Daniel. What's going on? Gaz also. And maybe that's all for today. It's kind of a quiet crowd. Maybe everyone thinks they have quality content. And that's one of the reasons why I did choose this topic for today is generally people think their content's very good, whether they write it themselves or they've hired someone. Many times we have a blind spot, or sometimes we don't like look very carefully. We're not actually trying to see if it's quality content. We're just publishing it and just moving on and not really thinking about it too much. So we're going to talk about quality content. I have a few bullet points if I quickly can. It looks like maybe 7 things you could kind of look at to see if you do have quality content. It's fairly straightforward. There's a couple tools that you can use. And I'm going to give a quick teaser here as we're opening up. Tomorrow, I'm doing the Niche Lifestyle Show with Adam and Mark from Niche Website Builders. And I think Alex may be out tomorrow, but because he is interested in the topic, he may buzz in for a minute. But I'm assuming he's out for tomorrow. But we're talking AI tools, artificial intelligence tools, and I bet today people will ask about it. You know, it just happens. And it fits in today. People might say, can you get quality content from an AI writer? And I've just been basically, I haven't tested one of these tools in a long time. When I did before, I was unimpressed. But what has happened is, number one, so many people are interested in AI tools that either I have to lock myself in the basement and ignore everything and all the external inputs, or I'll have to test them out. The other thing is I have a lot of friends and peers that are telling me, yeah, if you use the AI writers properly, if you have a good workflow and you know what to do and when to do it, you can get quality content. Depending on your writing skills, you may save time. So there's kind of a divide. There's people that are saying, well, I write pretty well. Writing comes naturally. I do it quickly. Someone in the last week or so said, hey, I'm dyslexic. It's actually pretty tough for me to write. They didn't go into details, but I suspect, putting together the sentences and the structure, and perhaps it's much easier for someone to edit. So depending on your skill level in writing and content creation, it may be easier if you use one of the tools and then you just edit it later. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons tomorrow. That's going to be on my channel. On this channel, it'll be 8 a.m. Mountain Time tomorrow. So we'll talk about that. And today we are talking about content and quality content, is if your content is good or bad. We have travel mode. Says that you can hear me loud and clear. So thanks a lot. A Nomad Overseas, what's happening? John is on. Rick is at work, so you're just listening in. Sweet. Thorsten, what's happening? Med. And we have Urain. All right. And Urain is saying ScaleNut is like Surfer SEO and Jasper. All right. And I'm actually probably going to test out one of the tools today. I'm going to have a series of videos coming out, and I've actually donated the idea many times, where there's so many of these AI tools out there and people are so curious about them. I mean, people just won't, they want them to work so bad. So I'm going to go into it. I actually I don't want to ask too many questions today, but I know some people use them and they're like, yeah, I could just feed in some core information and then have a narrative spit out on the other side. So I'm interested in that kind of work. And Daniel says that he is the one that is dyslexic, which is a tough fucking word to spell for. I'm not dyslexic, not diagnosed. I have some of it in the family, but I don't think I have any sort of a bad case. I'm not a strong speller. In fact, if you spell a word to me out loud, I basically just hear a string of letters and it does not make sense to me. But anyway, if you're dyslexic, it could be hard to spell dyslexic and it could be hard to write full sentences. Okay, before we get into the meat of it today, while people are still hopping in, I'm just going to make a couple quick announcements. So number one, if you're watching the replay, thanks for watching the replay. Please leave a comment. It helps the algorithm. Hit the thumbs up if you're watching live and I ask, or if I answer your question after you ask, then hit the thumbs up. If you enjoy this, if you dislike it, hit the thumbs up, whatever. And you can sign up to get notifications before I go live. I send those out about an hour ahead of time. It's the first link in there. It says get YouTube notifications. So we can't really rely on YouTube to notify us. So if you want to get a little heads up, please sign up over there. I believe there are 68 of you on that little email list. The other thing is a quick plug for Ezoic in their content month. They are a sponsor of these, and shout out to Leap. It helps your website load faster and get green and core web vitals. But we'll talk about content month because I am participating, and I actually roped in some of my friends who are much smarter and better than me. And that's how I got on there, I think. So there's some cool people for content month. It is in August. So there's some things that you can win, including content packages from some of your favorite content providers and agencies out there. So I'm not going to go super deep into it, but I'll share some of the info there because I'm going to be on there. The other is Odys Global. In about half an hour, I'm going to take a break and let my voice rest, and I'll play the little pre-recorded promo. And finally, big shout out, and there will be a live read for KWFinder. They're a complete end-to-end solution, a content marketing solution. So they kind of do it all. And I've gotten content from them in the past. We'll go over some of the details. I'll read some of the stuff that they want me to read. And they are a sponsor of at least this individual live stream. So I know I've interviewed Narcissus. I don't know how to say his last name. Begtech. But I've interviewed Narcissus before, and I know the crew over there. So thanks to KWFinder, and I'll talk a little bit more about them coming up. All right. Some good questions out there, and what we'll do, I'm going to mark questions. I'll probably come back to them because I have a few talking points, and I want to hit those up front, and then we can ease into the questions in general. So I'll tease them really quick, and I'll let you know that I'm going to come back to these questions, all right? Education Frog says, what's about Ubersuggest? Is quality tool or not? Okay. It's a fine tool. It does what it needs to do. I haven't used it much, but that's an easy one, so I'll just answer it. I don't prefer to use Ubersuggest, but if you want to, that is fine with me. And Prethal is asking about a specific niche, soundproofing niche. So we'll talk about that. Oh, our friend Ariel is on. And Zach. All right, sweet. All right, so let's talk about quality content. Generally, at least, especially in the current environment where there's a lot of people that are just writing a huge amount of content, or they're having it written. Usually they're having it written and they're publishing a lot. These are some of the most popular interviews that I do. They have a great headline, typically. So good of a headline, the results almost don't matter. So you see a headline that says, 500 articles in 5 months. Newbie. You think, that's awesome. Let's get into it. I want to hear about the story. How are they able to do it? The thing is, I've talked to enough people that have, say, 150 to 500 articles on their site, and they're making virtually zero. They put so many hours into it, and they're, past the sandbox period, and they're like, I don't know why traffic isn't showing up in my site. If I have a quick look at it, it's very clear to me very quickly. As soon as I see the first couple sentences, I know it's because the content sucks. So even if they started to get a little bit of traction, if someone read the content on the site, they would realize whoever wrote it didn't know what they were talking about. They don't know anything about the topic area, and it's probably not going to solve their problem or help them or be entertaining, and they will bounce. So it's very clear to me that the quality content pays off. And you can get away. I know there's some examples, and some of my friends have shown me that there's a few sites that were clearly publishing AI content in an automated fashion where they were just publishing, say, hundreds of articles a day or dozens of articles a day. And the sites had, 40,000 pieces of content, and they were getting a lot of visitors, all long tail traffic, very easy to rank those. And they showed up because people find these sites, and then what some of my friends were telling me, actually it was Mark and Adam, they were showing me through some sleuthing over on Ahrefs that a lot of these sites were penalized, or at least a handful. So they went from 1.5 million visitors per month as estimated by Ahrefs down to 0, right? So the content was so bad that eventually Google was like, this is bad stuff. So when you look at the quality, it's so important, especially if you're aiming to not build any backlinks. And that is a very popular approach, to not build backlinks, especially in this sort of YouTube community. People are like, I want to stay away from it. I'm so scared. I don't know how to do it. It looks like a lot of work, or I tried it and these few things didn't work. There's a huge spectrum. Some people swear it off and they'll never touch it. Some people are like, I'm open to it, but I'm not really sure. But the point is, a lot of people are not building backlinks especially like we used to. So one other layer that I'm going to put in here is, I just did an interview with a guy named Jamie. It's going to be coming out in about a week. So if you're not subscribed to this channel, you should subscribe. He's 25 years old. He just hit 32,000 per month in June, right? So he hit 32,000 in June, just 25 years old. And he is focusing on very high quality. So not much content. I mean, it's a decent amount. He's been doing this for about 3 years or so, or this particular couple sites for about 3 years. And he's focusing on high quality content. So instead of trying to publish 12 articles per week, he's like, if I could publish one per week, that's great. Very high quality. He tries to, same old stuff, tries to do better than what the competitors are doing. So nothing out of the ordinary. So it's very similar to Jake Thomas, who has the website in the pet niche, and I interviewed him a little while back. He has a little bit more of a writing background and really focuses on quality content as well. In fact, I think he's at $5,000 to $6,000 per month. And in his first year, I think the site's about 2 to 3 years old. First year, he only published 12 articles. One of them did get traction, and then the next year he started to ramp up the production. But quality often trumps the sheer quantity of crappy content. So I'm just emphasizing how important the quality content is. Okay. I'm going to go over the few pieces here, and I prepared ahead of time. You can see on these 2 post-it notes a wealth of information. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to go over them pretty quick, and then we're going to answer some questions. So keep them coming here, and then we'll see where it leads. Maybe we'll even talk about AI content, and I'll go on a tangent later. Okay, number 1, the grammar. The grammar may be the most important thing. If you can read it and it makes sense, that's a very powerful thing that'll keep someone reading. It doesn't even have to be the most compelling. It just needs to be correct. And what I'm talking about is having the right punctuation, having the right tense so it reads properly. When you have sort of broken sentences not in the native, or written by someone not of the native language of that site, you'll end up with things that just look like a 10-year-old wrote them, or a 5-year-old, something. Whenever you could write, but not that well. And it goes hand in hand with the intro. So the grammar overall, very important. It's even more important in the intro. That's what people check out at first, right? So they hit the page, they see the title. Hopefully it's, the right topic area. And then they start reading that first sentence. If the first sentence is good and interesting, maybe it qualifies the person, like, are you looking for whatever the keyword is for that page? Then you're probably on the right track. That's a good way to start, because the person's thinking, yeah, that is what I'm interested in. So they'll keep reading on. And I've heard this written many times I've heard this many times by copywriters. I've read it in books, on blogs. I've heard people say it. And essentially, the first word is to get you to read the next word, and so on. And the first sentence is to get you to read that next sentence. And it trickles down, and some people describe it as like creating a slippery slope of copywriting. And that's what this is, right? It's copywriting, but you don't have to think about it as anything complicated. You just want to make sure in the intro that the grammar's good, correct, and you want to make sure that it's qualifying the person to show them that they're in the right place. And by the way, my grammar is not that great, especially if you were to listen to how I just speak, either on the podcast or here. Normally, the spoken word is filled with fragments. It doesn't make sense half the time if you read it back. People start a sentence, realize they forgot some other things, and they go back and say some other stuff. So if you look at a transcript for this or like a podcast, it reads kind of terribly. Even people that are well-spoken, if they don't prepare ahead of time, usually it's going to end up with a lot of sentence fragments and fractured thoughts all across. So don't take what I'm saying as any indication of the quality of the grammar that you should have on your site. So if you can get that intro solid with tight grammar, that's good. The other area that I run into is the fluff. So if you've hired a writer, especially if there's no other quality control and you're hiring a writer and they have an assignment to hit a word count, you're going to find that they're throwing in some extra words that don't need to be there. And that ends up causing the writing seems less powerful. And I see it a lot with like transitional phrases. So some transitional phrases are okay, but if it's filled with transitional phrases and maybe like run-on sentences, you end up with like a long sentence that barely says anything that you can shorten quite a bit. So, for example, actually a good example. I'll pick on myself right now. If every other sentence begins with so, and I use this as a verbal tick, I've tried to improve on it, but it still sneaks up every now and then. Sometimes you can say so, and that's a good transition, but others are, in other words, I should have came up with a list. In other words, on the other hand, sometimes you can use these and it's a good transition. But if you overdo it, you end up with, like I said, a very long post that doesn't have that much meat because there's too many of these transitional phrases. The worst is when you have multiple transitions in a single sentence or so. Another area of fluff that is, it shows up even when I write myself, but it should come out with the editing, and that is redundant sentences. And it's really just restating the same thing multiple times. So it's literally redundant. It's not adding new information. It's just restating the same thing in a different way. If you're just talking through, just like this in a live stream, you may hear me repeat stuff. And I don't do it on purpose, but it's also live and I'm just thinking on my feet here. I'm just talking. There's no one else to save me either. When you're writing it out, you have the opportunity to edit that out. And it's as simple as just deleting that sentence. Like, you just said the same thing 2 sentences ago. You can take it out. The worst sort of offending issue here is when this happens and it's, say, 3 to 4 sentences in a paragraph and 3 of them say the same thing. You can remove most of it, leave the core sentence, and if this happens with the transitional phrases, and there's probably another grammatical term that explains that better, but if you have multiple transitional phrases and redundant sentences, you end up with maybe 200 words that could be condensed down to 20. And if you do that, sure, the intro goes to a few paragraphs to like 2 sentences. You end up with a much better piece of content. So as you can imagine, if you explode this and expand it across the whole post, you can have like a 1,500 word article. It could be reduced down to 900 words. It'll read much better. Anyone landing on the page will appreciate, getting to the point more quickly. No one wants to read slower. They don't want to read things that you just said. Now, if you've gone through and you've improved those areas, you'll be in a much better spot. And Ariel says, sometimes we call them sticky sentences or sticky words, and that's why authors need editors. Yep. And I'm not a very experienced writer, but I think, some writers are much better. They've developed the skill to be able to edit their own work, especially, for me, I have to move away from it for a little while. So write some, edit the next day. I have to get out of the environment. And part of it is like it's too close to you, or you're too close to it. So you've written and you've reread it a bunch of times, and then you try to go back and you try to edit it, and like you're not even really reading it, you're just kind of skimming it. Which brings me to the next point. And it's kind of the structure of the content. And subheadings are very helpful. And a lot of people are finding your site on their phone, and they're viewing your site on their phone. They're probably doing something else, and they're most likely not reading it very carefully. So that's where you can get away with like the grammar issues, because people are hardly reading it. They're just like, I see, every third word or so. But the subheadings help a lot. Now, from an SEO standpoint, it's very helpful. You can put some of your, quote, secondary words or some of the other long tail keywords in for your subheadings. Additionally, it helps someone skim it. So if you're thinking about someone on their phone, you're thinking about them getting the information quickly, you are it's your job to make it shorter and to make it skimmable. And part of the skimmability is having good subheadings with a proper hierarchy. Now, if we rewind and think about how you might write content, a lot of people, myself included, I like to write an outline and then fill it out from there. So you start with a pretty basic outline, maybe the main subheadings, but as you work through it, you may find that some of those main subheadings have multiple subheadings themselves. So it really breaks out into something where you can create an outline, you can beef up the outline a little bit, and then you may be able to come up with other subheadings along the way to go a little bit deeper and make, make it easier to skim and easier to write. So you can go to each one of those subheadings, write a sentence or two, and then keep going. And it makes it a little, well, at least for my brain, it makes it a little bit easier to write a post that way, or an article or an essay or whatever it is you're writing. Similar to the subheadings, rich formatting helps a lot. It helps people absorb the information in the easiest format. So if there's some technical specs or something where there's a lot of numbers, a table can be helpful. We don't want to see a list of numbers in a sentence. We'd rather see that in a table. And you could say, see table below for the measurements on blah, blah, blah. Further, you can put a numbered list. You can put bullet points. You could come up with some other way to present the information, even if it's, maybe it's a little graphic or something like that. But the point is it breaks up the text and you don't have a wall of text there. So when you're thinking of that, images are quite helpful. You could put a caption there. Some people have websites where most of the folks are on a desktop computer. They have a full monitor. You can format the images a little bit different, where it's a sort of a wide, 16:9 type image that you typically won't be able to display very well on a phone. So if you take advantage of the fact that people are on a desktop computer, you can put bigger images on there and it helps break up the text. A couple other minor things, and I did mention I put no BS and no fluff. So take out anything that's redundant. You're better off with a shorter article that's not redundant. There potentially could be rare occasions where you really want to emphasize a point, and then you can go a little deeper. But if you are reading it and you can take it out without affecting the meaning or the impact of whatever it is you're writing, you should probably take it out. Another one that took me a very long time to figure out is passive voice. So take out passive voice. Most of the grammar type tools, I use Grammarly Premium, but most of the people that use most of the tools will identify passive voice for you. If you don't know what it is, like I said, it was hard for me to understand this and identify it, but after a few years of effort in trying to figure out what it was, and here's what it would be. Basically, I'd ask my wife to edit something. She's like, "Yeah, you get the passive voice here," and I'm like, "What? How can you even tell? It sounds fine to me. I don't know." But here's the example. So I'll tell you the active voice. So it's passive versus active. And by the way, the grammar police in the chat can correct me if I mess it up. Okay. So here's the active voice. The boy threw the ball. So the boy does the activity to the ball. The boy threw the ball. The passive voice is the ball was thrown by the boy. So the subject is having the action done to it. So you want to have active voice. The reason why is apparently it's confusing to read. So if you read, if there's one sentence of passive voice, you will actually see this in books that are edited and that are high quality books by great authors. And there's probably some reason that they wrote it in a passive voice. There's a reason they did it, and most of their book won't be like that. The reason why it's confusing is because you're reading like the ball was thrown by the boy. You're like, okay, the ball was, and then you're like, oh, okay, the boy threw it. So you have to like read the whole sentence and you're like, oh, the boy threw the ball. So passive versus active, you could research it a little bit more deeply, but basically that's the idea. And our brains get tired if there's an essay that we're reading and there's a lot of passive voice in there. It is more difficult to understand and it makes your brain tired. That's how it's been explained to me. You end up with tighter sentences too. It's not always shorter, but a lot of times it is shorter. And if you're editing, like that can be one of your goals. Just make this as short as possible. Take out extra words, extra phrases, take out anything that's redundant. If you could shorten it, it will be better. And Zach says, passive voice was hard for me to get rid of versus I had a hard time getting rid of passive voice. Perfect. Yeah, perfect. The last little bit is just sort of publishing on the web. So all these things lead to, or a lot of them lead to an article that you could skim a little bit better. It's shorter, it's tighter, there's less fluff. And one thing, publishing online depends on the niche, but generally you're looking at short paragraphs. So sometimes this could be one sentence paragraphs, but most of the time for me, it's paragraphs that are 1 to maybe 3 or 4 sentences long. A 4-sentence paragraph is fairly long, and what we're trying to avoid is a wall of text where there's no bullet points, no images, nothing to break it up, and it's just like a lot of text. Even just having the white space there makes it more readable, and I mean, you may be thinking, who really cares that much? But if you look at the same content where it's just text, maybe with a couple images versus text that's all broken up with subheadings, with bullet points, with short paragraphs, it's a lot more digestible and people are more likely to read it just because it looks more inviting. So those are a couple ways to identify quality content. I'm going to hop back and look at a lot of these questions. If you have any questions, let me know. I usually don't do this, but if anyone wants me to have a look at the content on their site, you can put it in the chat and we can take a quick look at it. I'll only do like 1 or 2 of these. And for the next couple minutes, I'm going to run an ad from our friends at Odys Global and give my voice a little bit of a rest, and I'll be right back. Quick word from our sponsor, Odys Global. They're the source for premium age domains with powerful backlinks and strong branding. Featured domain for today is called How's Business, and it's relatively modestly priced. If you look at the grand scheme of things, it is 7 years old. There are roughly 90 referring domains, one what they call high authority links, and you actually get the little logo, which is fairly simple, and I would say it's a modern sort of logo there, and all the Odys domains include that. Now let's take a look over here on Ahrefs. So we see the domain rating is 27. It was actually founded in 2015, so it is 7 years old. Domain authority is about 27 as well. And you can see, I was doing a little investigating here, and you can see there was some traffic, back in the day, circa like 2017 and then 2020, there was a lot more traffic, and then it sort of dropped off. Now, the original iteration of this site was basically a how-to on applying for grants, funding per region, highlighting local enterprise partnerships, as well as just business news from around the world. And we'll actually look at the Wayback Machine in a second here. I do want to show you some of the backlinks. So while there are, roughly 90 or so referring domains, 65 of those are do follow, which of course are the important ones. And what you'll notice here is how awesome some of these are. So there's the businessdesk.com, but also blog.gov.uk. Hiscox. It sounds, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Sounds like I'm saying something dirty, but .co.uk and a bunch of other pretty awesome sites, Business Growth Hub, a lot of .gov links, which is pretty amazing. I did want to take a look at the Wayback Machine, which if you haven't played around with this and just looked at, other older websites, but you can see there were some like captures of this URL way back even before it was founded, which seems odd. So maybe those were placeholders and they never really got started until 2015. But anyway, let's take a look at what the site looked like in 2019 or so. And you can see a fairly modern looking website, growth hub for York, North Yorkshire, or Yorkshire, and East Riding. I don't know. I feel like I'm saying it wrong. But anyway, there's a lot of great information here. And you can see, like, it was a site that they took seriously. So what could you put here? I would say it's kind of a no-brainer to aim for informational topics that were already in existence, like the all the how-tos for applying for grants and funding and business in general. So it is focused on the UK, so you could potentially expand, but I would say you could focus in on that area, and that would be a great move. Further, I suspect there are probably some business courses and other helpful things, maybe in the marketing area, the digital marketing area, where you could be an affiliate for digital products like courses or masterminds or other things that help a person running a business to learn more. It's obviously very valuable. And if someone is already running a business, they can learn a lot that they can execute and get a great ROI. If you are interested in checking out Odys or this specific domain, there are, a bunch of domains over here on Odys. But if you join using my affiliate link, you can get $100 in your account, and potentially I would get a commission if you purchase anything, and it helps support these live streams and the show. So thanks a lot to Odys, and let's get back to whatever it is I'm talking about over on the live side. And we are back. So we did get a couple people mention they want me to take a look at their site. And A Nomad Overseas, I assume you want me to look at A Nomad Overseas. That is the domain, but please let me know in the chat. I'm going to hop and answer a few of the questions before we start reviewing stuff. So I'm going to go back in time to the chat, and Urain talks about ScaleNut. So that will be something that I check out. And the interesting thing, if people are just hopping in, I'm talking AI content on the Niche Lifestyle Show. Adam and Mark from Niche Website Builders will definitely be there. Alex, probably not. Alex is not going to be able to make it, I don't think. And Prithal says, what do I think about the soundproofing niche? Seems good, seems good overall. It is a little bit narrow, so if you are happy with keeping it fairly narrow, there's a lot of acoustic stuff if you nerd out on it. And you can potentially go a little bit broader and talk more about the idea of like home studios or studios in general, and then you can have a lot more products and you can expand in the future. And Gaz says, it's true, you can be biased, but I think my content is better than my competitors. It's annoying, but their inferior content ranks as it's older with some backlinks. I need to be patient. And the thing is, Gaz, I know your content probably is fine. The biggest issue that I have is around the like grammar and just like poorly written content. But I could tell just from your chats that you have a handle of, writing in English. And, this applies for whatever language you're writing in. I just happen to be English based. That's all. So, you're writing comments that are, they're legible. When I run across the ones that are pretty bad, it's, clear that however it was written, they didn't edit it afterwards. Okay. And next, John says, you really need the ideas and research because Jasper is a writing tool, not a researcher. Quillbot is an excellent paraphrase tool. Okay, cool. Gaming says, is changing the date of an old blog post, does it give a signal of a content update? Maybe a little bit of a signal of a content update, but you know what the best signal is for updating content and sending that signal to Google? Is update the fucking content, right? You're trying to trick Google or something? I think they're smarter than that. So your best bet is to update the fucking content. Okay. Daryl says, I work in the pet industry, a big box retailer. So the pet niche is what came to me first. It's very saturated. What do you think about a pet reptile blog or a dog tech blog? Either one of those can be fine. I've seen them be successful. And Daryl, I would encourage you to check out the interview I did with Jake Thomas. It was a couple months ago. One of the fine people in the chat could probably find it. He started a blog just a couple years ago in the pet niche in a specific, focusing on a specific breed of dog. So you can certainly be successful, even if it's, quote, saturated, especially if you're patient. If you have a background in the industry, you're exposed to many of the products, you know the questions that people ask about certain things, and you would be able to use that to your advantage. All right. And oh yeah, Adrian's here. Thanks a lot. One of the fine moderators. And learn Medicare billing. Tony, what's going on? Does building a site on Divi negatively impact the future sale value? Not specifically that I know of. No. I haven't used Divi very much. I've only tested it once or twice. I think there could be an impact if someone is like averse to it. If you find someone who loves that theme, it could work to your advantage. I would say even the themes that I hate on, even the ones that are more complicated, I'm pretty sure there's a way that you can implement them so that they're more simplified. And if they're more simplified, then it may not be an impact, right? If you're not using a lot of the rich formatting and stuff that can sort of mess up a transition over to a different theme, that's where you run into some trouble. Now, before I keep going on the questions here, I do have a live read for us here. This is from Content Refined. So I know these guys, and Narcissus, oh, here's his picture right here. Narcissus sent me this email, and he's the business manager. That's his title there. So here's what we have. And oh, quick note, I think Content Refined, they partnered, or they were acquired, I think that's the word, by Crowd Content. So Crowd Content is a company I wasn't familiar with, but I think they're pretty big. So here is Content Refined. There's a link in the description. They have a complete hands-off approach that they offer sites. So they review the website, and they do that with you. And then they do keyword research, content planning, and they write the content. They do SEO optimization, and they publish it. So they'll draft it right there in WordPress for you. And the client can sit back and relax. That's you, the client, while the content is published to their site on a monthly basis. You have one point of contact, which is a huge advantage for agencies versus hiring writers. In the past, I've typically hired writers on my own and built a team, and I'm the project manager. But if you work with Content Refined, they have one point of contact, and that is a project manager that they have in-house. So they are familiar with the systems and processes and all that stuff inside Content Refined. All the writers and editors are native English speakers in the US or Canadian based, or at least they're from there. You know, I don't know where they're at, but it says US or Canadian here on my paper. And they don't approach each site in the same way. There's not a cookie cutter approach. They review the site with you and find out what's important in the content that you want to have. They say each site is unique and it requires a different approach or strategy. So they review it and they look at what the site is currently ranking for, the content gaps, keyword gaps, clusters, etc., finding out where the opportunity is, and then they go after that. They do occasionally, I think Narcissus threw this just for me, they occasionally use the KGR method when it makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, they don't use the KGR. So thanks a lot to Content Refine. They hopped on for this particular live stream. There's a link in the description. And please, folks out there, do me a favor if you are a supporter of the live streams. If you show up, I know a lot of you do. Zach and Daniel and Gaz and Ariel, some of the others. If you have a second, this is just a pro tip, because I know a lot of times when we're in the bathroom and you're flipping through social media, that's when you have a second. So head over to Content Refine. There's a link in the description here. So click on that. Hopefully you're not in the bathroom now, by the way, but do it later. Do it later when you're in the bathroom. Click over to Content Refine. You could even put it in the message. Just find a way to send them the message, email them. And what we can do, I should click over to, because I have their website up right here. So you hop over here. You can sign up for the free consultation. It is free. So you can check out that. It's a little pixelated there, but it's good to go. Oh, there's Narcissus right there. And anyway, you could find a way to send a message to them, which is probably somewhere in here. Oh, and they have all the packages and all that, but just let them know that you appreciate the sponsorship. Oh, it's right here. You can send this little, it's right here at the bottom, and you can say, hey, thanks for sponsoring the show, the live stream. And while I'm over here, before I take a look at your awesome pets and a nomad overseas, shout out to Content Month over at Ezoic. I am participating in this. It's a whole freaking month. They have courses, webinars, blogs, and a sweepstakes. So you can check out more information here. They have certain focuses per week. And I'm just going to skip ahead to mine because this whole thing is obviously is about me. So in week 2, the big man, Barry Schwartz, is going to be answering questions, but I'm going to be part of a roundtable. I pitched this idea when they asked me to participate. I told them I had friends that are better than me, Matt Giovanisi and Miles Beckler, and then the CMO, Tyler. I've interviewed him, Tyler Bishop. He's the CMO of Ezoic. And yeah, we're just going to chat about, what did we say? It's like lifestyle and brand building, content creation. I just wanted to talk about fun stuff, nothing tactical. So I pitched the idea and they were like, cool, we could do that. So you can sign up and there are tons of prizes, including lots of free content. I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I will be doing a live stream, and that's one of the cool things. I like to do live streams. So I thought, I know Matt has a setup and I know Miles does too. And I figured we may as well just talk about the stuff that we all or the three of us talked about when we got together last. So that is going on as well. I do have some questions I need to answer before I review your awesome pets and a nomad overseas. So let's check that out. Zach says, longer articles made sense years ago. Google has gotten wiser. I can outrank 2,000 words of fluff with 800 words of real content. Great point. Alan says, I'm starting out, but this seems to be the way to go. The bottom line is to be useful to the audience and not waste their time. Yes. Alan says, are short paragraphs for the reader or for SEO? For the reader, because I know the easiest way to get someone to read more is to make it super digestible. Yep. Zach is going a little deeper for the 2.0, and shorter paragraphs mean more space per ads and a higher RPM. That is right. Okay, so as we're going through, okay, Mid-Atlantic says, love the tattoo, thanks. Yeah, this is from the Filipino flag. Somebody noticed it last week. I'm half Filipino, so it makes sense. Yeah. There's 3 stars. It's hard to see all in one. All right. What is the right way to write an affiliate or product review? So I have a template over on my website. I think there's probably a link in the description so you can check it out. But that is a good format. Basically, you have, if you're thinking sort of a best of, a lot of times you'll have like a little intro, and then you can have, say, 3 to 5 products that you do mini reviews on, hit the high points, and then at the end you can have the kind of buying guide where you talk about each one of the features and things that people want to learn about. Some people like to flip that and do the buying guide above, but the components are pretty similar, and you could make certain parts longer than others and have FAQs at the end, maybe some external references, but that's the general idea. Urain says, I use Grammarly Premium as well. Their red and blue suggestions are on point, but the green ones, like the synonyms, are terrible. What are my thoughts? So I don't recall the synonyms so much, but I would say generally when I write, I'm writing for like the most general audience. I didn't have a strong reading or writing background. So I'm not trying to use fancy words. I'm not trying to sound smart. I'm trying to make it easy for people to understand in the most straightforward words. And if I'm getting synonyms that are like more syllables, it's probably not what I'm going to choose. I'm probably going to try and simplify it so someone with a lower reading comprehension can understand it. And part of that is, a lot of times what I'm writing is like marketing materials, or it's for an international audience. So I want like a 5th grade English speaker to be able to understand it. I have heard like aim for, I can't remember if it was like 6th or 8th grade, but it's like young, like you're able to read, you've been exposed to some books, but basically you're a low level reader. Like that's what I'm trying to write for. And I'm not trying, like, it's not in my background or anything. I don't give a shit. Right. Okay. But to your point, synonyms, yeah, I haven't used that portion very much, but I probably would agree with you. Liam says, do I have opinions on front loading a blog with content before launching it, say 30 articles? Could it benefit SEO? When you say launching it, what do you mean? Do you mean just like when you start publishing it? There might be a little bit of a benefit, but honestly, it probably doesn't matter. I mean, you could publish all 30 articles in one day. If you are like waiting to publish all of them, like if your launch is when you hit publish for them, it's probably going to be a nominal benefit. It probably won't matter. And here's the thing. Maybe there's some tests out there or some, quote, case studies where someone was like, hey, you know what? I got more traffic in the first 2 weeks because I held off and I published all those 30 articles at once. Just curious, from the people in the chat, what do you think of that? Would you do that if you got a little advantage for, say, 2 to 4 weeks and you're like, hey, this worked. You heard one person do it. Now, I'm thinking, and this has been a theme that I talked about, is I'm thinking, what about 2 years later? Would it even matter what happened in the first 2 to 4 months? Probably not. Who really cares? So if you're thinking further out, you may have a little bit of a benefit, but it really doesn't matter if you're thinking years ahead and not weeks. So Liam, I would say for me, I just publish it as soon as the post is done. I publish it. And then I'll come back and edit it later, maybe improve it. But yeah, I usually would just publish it straight away. A nomad overseas, which I'll review your site in just a moment. You very recently switched to popcorn from Akadabo, so you need to sort the layout and the build and do the logo. Okay. And Alan says this, I'm going to take a guess and say it's better to schedule it because Google will look to see if there's consistently new content added and then dumping it all at once and then there's a gap. I disagree with that, Alan, but I don't think it matters that much. I typically publish all at once and then there's a gap in content or a posting schedule. Back in the day, that may have been true, but I don't think it's true now. But I respect your opinion. All right. Mazamil. I totally focus on search intent of the main focus keyword. Don't focus on related keywords and info article 1500. Okay. So you only focus on the main keyword and you don't focus on related keywords. Okay. All right. So we'll have a look at some of the other, or we'll have a look at some sites. Nick says, all right. Okay. So we'll take a quick look at Daniel's site over here. Is Alex at WP Eagle going live today? Is he doing a live? Somebody could let me know in the chat. Okay. So this is Daniel's site, apparently Your Awesome Pets. And the focus today is content, of course. So let's have a quick look. Is this quality content? So I do see an ad, pops up immediately here, when I try and click, which I don't love that. But we're not looking at that today. We're just looking at the content. So, cat purring, what does it mean? I would maybe put like a colon there. So, cat purring, what does it mean? It's just kind of, it is a fragment. So I would put a colon there just for readability. Probably doesn't matter too much, but from the reading perspective, I'm like, oh, it's what a voice search would be. Like cat purring, what does it mean? So I put a colon there, I think. Cats purr because it is a way to communicate with their owners and other cats. Cats who are stressed or afraid purr to soothe themselves. Also, purring can communicate with other animals, such as dogs. Some people believe that cats purr to show they are content and happy. Others believe that the frequency of a cat's purr can show its mood, stress levels, and health. Some believe that cats who purr a lot may be more likely to be adopted or given as pets. And you potentially, so this is like nitpicking, all that generally reads well. It does sound like just kind of, it's almost like a bullet point list. It's just like this and then that and then this and then that. There's no real flow. This is a straightforward question though. I did read at some point that generally, not always, but a lot of times you can remove the word that. So if you remove the word that, it still reads the same. Some believe that cats who purr a lot, and then some believe cats who purr a lot. So you could take out the word that. Sometimes it's needed, of course, but I think in that case, you take it out. There is no single answer to the question, as purring can be interpreted in many ways. However, some believe it is a way for cats to release stress and relax. Others believe it is a form of communication between cats and can indicate happiness, contentment, or love. Okay. So one thing, right? So we see this talks about communication, happiness, contentment, or love. And before, you already mentioned it can be communication, content, and happy. So this is already stated previously. All right. And there is a lot more to it. They are happy, they're hungry, or they want something. So short paragraphs here. There's pictures of kittens. That's good. It looks like your caption. So cat purring, what does it mean? 3. And cat purring, what does it mean? 2. So you may want to make those accurate, not just number them. And let's look at the final thoughts. In conclusion, cat purring is a familiar sound with many meanings. Some people believe it's a sign of happiness. Others believe it's a way for the cat to communicate. So we are identifying basically the same thing being restated over and over again, and you could shorten that for sure. No one knows for sure, and we already said that too. It's clear that they find it to be a beneficial activity. If you consider getting a cat, be prepared to hear this soothing sound often. Why do cats purr when they are dying? Oh, dark turn here. There are a few theories why cats may purr when they're dying, comforting themselves in what might be a scary or stressful situation. Another is saying goodbye to their loved ones. There's also the possibility that purring is a reflexive act that doesn't have any deeper meaning. So yeah, I mean, I think overall this reads pretty well. There's no major issue overall. There's some redundant things that can be removed. I think it could be tightened up a little bit. The structure is a little bit, it's a little bit soft, but I think, in this case, Daniel, like what I see here is it may not be like a purely templated thing that you can do, but I have heard of people that come up with a lot of informational topics where you basically can do the same exact structure again and again. And maybe you've done that here where there's some core information and it's a standard sort of 5-paragraph essay. I don't know how many points you have here, but like you do the intro and you're like, we're going to talk about happiness, communication, and some other thing. And then you talk about those at length in each one of the sections denoted by subheadings. And then maybe an FAQ at the end. And then you close it out at the end with a summary of the beginning, right? Or similar to the beginning. And it's the standard sort of structure where you talk about what you're going to talk about, you talk about it, and then you talk about what you talked about. Makes sense? Okay. And so Daniel said a couple things. Now that I'm reading it out loud, it does sound like a list. And this was an early article, so I was adding fluff. Cool. So, and this is perfect though. So Daniel, you did exactly what I like to do, and that's iteration. So you wrote the article, you didn't know what you were doing exactly, you did the best that you could, and then you published it. You can go back. Like the thing is, none of these are permanent. In fact, Google wants you to go through and update the content, improve it. When there's some groundbreaking research on cat purring, you go update it because you got new information. You can also just make it better because your writing has gotten tighter. Maybe you're looking at a certain aspect differently and you're like, okay, structurally, we can improve this. We can make it easier for the reader to read. It can be generally the same information, just organized a little differently. One caveat, if you're ranking pretty well for an article already, you can change it and improve it. Improving the content is always a good idea. I would take some caution if you were ranking well. Say you're ranking number one, I probably wouldn't go through and make huge structural changes. You maybe would want to take a more, let's tweak this a little bit here and take a look at it that way. But as I mentioned, the main point, my number one thing is like proper grammar, punctuation is as good as you can have it. Sometimes I get screwed up with commas and how to use it or how to use commas. I've actually like studied that a little more closely. And if you've listened to a lot of my podcasts or live streams, I have a complex or an issue with the English teachers that I had. And I think they sucked. I remember there were multiple years where we would show up in the, first couple of days of school. They're like, okay, do you guys know how to do this? Did they teach you this last year? And they're like, well, no, we don't know how to use commas. And they're like, they were supposed to teach it to you last year. Well, we'll just go over it really quick today and then we'll just move forward. So I don't know, maybe it was just one or two shitty teachers and then I didn't learn how to use commas properly. So I was like, oh, fuck. I mean, obviously if it's a list, you put commas in between, the three things. And I do prefer the Oxford comma, by the way. But we would show up and they're like, oh, they were supposed to teach you that last year. Well, we'll just rush through it in one day and then try and catch up. So this happened multiple years. So I was just like, I don't know what the fuck is going on here. I have no clue. So I have a bit of a complex, but I've tried hard now that I understand that you can learn this stuff and teachers are great. The English teachers that I had, they sucked. So I won't talk about them as people, but them teaching me English didn't work. It didn't stick. So I actually have a couple books on the shelf back there where I was like, okay, I'm trying to learn how to write properly. And one pro little tip is just write shorter sentences. Not all the time, but if you just write shorter sentences, they're easier to read. It's simple. You're not making anything too complicated. And I got off on a tangent, but basically, Daniel, the grammar here is fine. Do your best with punctuation. Try to get, the right word in there. I know some people. Oh man. Some people, they love to just criticize. So if you mispronounce a word, if you're speaking, right, they're like, oh, what an idiot. It's like we're doing our best to try to communicate. But the other thing is just misusing words. Are they called homonyms? That they sound the same, but they're spelled different. So there, like THERE, and then THEY apostrophe RE. I have to think very hard to spell out loud. And then THEIR, right? So if you use the wrong one, they can't wait. They're like, what an idiot. They don't even know which one to use. But the fact is, we're just, we're trying to write stuff as quickly as we can. And we should go back and edit it, fix that up. But it's not like we're trying to make a mistake. So anyway, this seems fine, Daniel. And I would go through, you said it was really useful. That's great. Glad to help. Susan says, she has a question about private blog networks. And if I learn from Aiden Booth or Alex Becker, I actually learned from neither. So I picked it up from, let's see, I think Hayden Miyamoto was interviewed by Spencer Hawes. So I learned from that area of the internet. Khalid, what's going on? Oh, Boz says, do I have any books to improve writing? Yeah, 2. I'll be right back. I'll grab them. Let's see. So first one from a more like just writing standpoint of getting it right and that sort of thing is this one. It's Everybody Writes, Anne Hanley, and I believe I feel like she published on the web quite a bit, and I can't remember how I found this one specifically, but it does have stuff like comma usage and some other things like that. I should probably reread it. And then this one is just a good read. I really like Stephen King, but this one's on writing, and it is a memoir of the craft. There's no tactical stuff in here, but it is a good read, and it does give you a pretty good idea what's going on. And actually, he talks about active and passive voice a little bit. And then the other cool thing at the very end, I think I can't remember exactly what this is from, but he has maybe it was from an editor of his or how he edits. So he'll write whatever he's writing, and then he's given us here like how he edits it. So he goes through and strikes things out, and you can see like he starts with a certain amount and he cuts it way down. He moves things around. So, when we're writing online, a lot of times we're in a bit of a hurry. Sorry, this is not focusing. We're in a bit of a hurry, but we really should go back. And depending on what you're writing, you're going to go back and rewrite it and edit it. So that's the main idea. Those books are pretty good. Bradbury says, one good tip I read was to remove all the words that aren't required. You put so much extra fluff when you're in a full flow. True, 100%. And Urain says when you use shorter sentences, you make less mistakes. Is it fewer mistakes or less? So that's some of the stuff that's like in the book, right? It's like fewer versus less. And I think it's when you're looking at something as individuals or a group. So are mistakes a group or individual? And I think they're individual, so it's fewer. I don't know. None of this stuck, We just try to do our best. Oh, and a Nomad Overseas says, funny enough, I've heard quite a few stand-up comics mention the Stephen King book was invaluable in helping them improve their show writing. Makes total sense. Okay. And that said, let's check out a Nomad Overseas. All right. Quick other plug for the content month. I am doing a live panel here with these jokers. So we got Tyler Bishop, CMO, and then Matt Giovanisi and Miles Beckler. So do sign up. You can win some things, but you definitely want to catch our live panel there. And you could sign up somewhere here. Yep. So you can get exclusive content and blah, blah, blah. So let's check out a Nomad Overseas. So this is on our friends' popcorn theme, right? This is a popcorn theme, right? All right. So I don't care much about the formatting. Like the focus today is content, as this stream was sponsored by Content Refine. There's a link in the description here. Please let them know I gave a tip earlier, which I'll mention again. Hold on. Did somebody say something funny in the chat? There's funny. There's laughing. Okay. How much does it cost to go on vacation in Vietnam? All right, let's see. So if you're tuning in late, I am focusing on content today. Some of the most important areas are, grammar and to make sure that it reads well. And one of the most important parts is the intro. It's the first thing that people read and they decide if they're going to continue reading. So here we go. And we'll zoom in a little bit here. Remind me to zoom back if I forget. Are you tired of the same old tourist traps? If you're looking for an authentic travel experience, Vietnam is your place. This Southeast Asian country offers everything from lush jungles to awe-inspiring mountains to stunning beaches and delicious food. And best of all, it's affordable. You can easily stick to a budget while enjoying all the fantastic things Vietnam has to offer. Pretty good. Yeah, that sounds good. No issues. Seems good to me. Okay. The one thing, maybe at the close of this is totally optional, but maybe at the close of this, you would say, let's talk about how expensive it's going to be, or something like that. Now, you do say you can easily stick to a budget while enjoying all the fantastic things. Maybe that's good enough as a transition. But the idea here is like you're transitioning that last sentence to the next thing. So maybe you're doing it here. Best of all, it's affordable. You could stick to a budget. Okay. We'll see how it goes for the rest of the post here, which I'll actually just look here. Affordable, great destination. Okay, so the one thing that is not here, so how much does it cost to go on vacation? You are assuming that they're on a budget, but some people have a lot of money and they want to spend it. And they don't want to be in budget accommodations. They don't want budget food. They want the good shit. So I don't know if you cover it here, but from a content standpoint, it could be interesting to say, here's the budget option, and then here is the premium option, or when you have a lot of disposable income, here's the kind of vacation you would want to take in Vietnam. And then you could do high-end stuff. And this is a travel blog, right? So if you partner with companies that have expensive tours, then that affiliate revenue is going to be way higher than ads. It's going to be higher than, cheaper affiliate deals. So that's something you could add in here. The assumption is you want it to be cheap. Now, that could be a good assumption for this particular search phrase. All right, let's read on. The cost of a vacation in Vietnam varies depending on your travel style and budget. If you're looking for an affordable, authentic experience, you could easily stick to a budget while enjoying all the amazing things Vietnam has to offer. Some of the best things in life are free, and Vietnam is a great place to explore this idea. There are plenty of activities and attractions that won't cost you a penny, including exploring the vibrant streets of Ho Chi Minh City, hiking the stunning Annamite mountains, or relaxing on one of Vietnam's beautiful beaches. Vietnam also has plenty to offer if you're looking for a more luxurious experience. Oh, you cover it right there. Luxury resorts and hotels can be found throughout the country, and there are some fantastic restaurants where you can enjoy delicious Vietnamese cuisine. Perfect. You're covering it here. Of course, these experiences will cost a bit more than the budget-friendly options, but they're still relatively affordable compared to other Southeast Asian countries. No matter your travel style or budget, Vietnam is an excellent place to vacation. With its affordable accommodations, transportation, and activities, it's easy to see why this Southeast Asian country is becoming one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world. Good. Yeah, this reads really well. And you do cover the luxury travel if people want it. So, yep, I think that's good overall. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I have two ideas for this without reading the rest. FAQs are good. Okay, so I got a great one for you. You have listed out what these accommodations are like, the accommodation and the cost for each one of the pieces. It'd be really cool to see a table with each one of them listed out and the range that you've listed here already. And that would be great to see at the top, probably. You could say, how much does it cost? And then put it in here. And maybe before you get into the details, you say, here's the estimated cost for one person on a per day basis. And here's the range. And you could say, if you're doing zero cost activities, it's going to be this. If you're doing, estimate something, $200 a day for some fancier activity, throw it in there. So it could be a minimum of this up to that. Here's how it breaks down in different areas. Here's how it breaks down for multiple people. So maybe 2 people, right? It would be a little cheaper if they're traveling together. Maybe they save a little bit on the accommodations. Maybe they save a little bit on food. You can make some other assumptions and put it in. If it's a family, right? Maybe they can share a room, but if it's like 4 individuals, that would be a different cost. The thing that you can add in here is you could have, and this would translate, by the way, to any of the other posts that you have that are budget related, but you can have just a little budget calculator, right? Simple spreadsheet, Google Sheet, whatever. A lot of us have been talking about creating calculators. So you can have a calculator on your site. How many people are going? Is it a budget travel or a more expensive luxury travel? And just go from there. And then you have like a specific tool to calculate a budget for the individual place. Alan says, I've read that in product design, if you take care of the extreme users at both ends, the middle takes care of itself. Does it hold up in content as well? I don't know anything about product design. And as far as, let's think through it. It seems like it kind of makes sense. Ideally, you would just cover the middle as well and just say the average budget for a traveler, in this case, would be X. So you're like 2 extremes and the one in the middle. You could explicitly state it. Maybe you can give some examples, but it doesn't have to be as verbose as some of the other pieces, and just, aim in the middle and you should be pretty good. So I'm not 100% sure, but that generally makes sense to me. Okay. Cool. So I think that covers it. Any other questions out there? Don't forget to support our sponsors out there. We have links in the description. We have Content Refine, new sponsor that hopped on for today. Give them a shout. Please follow the link in the description. There's a little message. They actually have free consultations. So you can sign up. They can review your site a little bit. I'm not 100% sure who you chat with there, but they have, just a free thing. You get a personal consultation and they can give you tips and help you out a little bit. They have specific hours listed, and so all you have to do is fill this guy out here, and then you can go from there. And it's a free consultation, so you may as well do it and let them know. I'm sure they'll ask, but you could let them know that you found them through this little plug here. And they do have different packages, but like I said, you got the free consultation here, nothing to lose. And they have content writing, keyword research, and upgrading existing content as well. So you can check out those different areas. Of course, we have Ezoic. We got the content month coming up, and you can sign up for free there. They'll have on-demand videos, live webinars, including the live panel with myself, Matt Giovanisi, Tyler Bishop, and Miles Beckler, where we're going to talk about life. And what do we call it here? It's down here. We're going to talk about SEO, brand building, content creation, and real life experiences. I think we're just going to tell stories as far as I can tell. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you tomorrow for the AI pros and cons niche lifestyle show on this channel. And I think Alex